How did your deliberations go with your counterpart here in South Africa, Dr. Naledi Pandor?
Well, it went very well, beyond my expectation. I'm really happy, pleased with the discussions, the meetings, the atmosphere, the friendship, the frankness, the leadership, the guidance that I have really received from her during the discussion. She masters all of that, and she performed exceptionally, as always, as representative of the people and the leadership of South Africa. We went through many issues and topics related to our bilateral relations. And also, we have revisited our relationship since a long time ago, and stressed the facts of the special relationship that exists between South Africa and Palestine. And that really is where we stand in terms of where we want to take such relationship. Of course, South Africa for us represents an icon not only of resistance and of liberation and of independence, but also of a voice of freedom and a voice that calls for justice, a voice that cannot accept, of course, grievances, violation of human rights, and lack of course, self-determination, or the continuation of occupation, repression, racism, etc. We always feel at strength whenever we meet with a representative of the South African people, and we feel that we are strengthened and empowered with such guidance and knowledge and experience. We did discuss topics beyond our bilateral relations when it comes to the continent and what's happening there, in particular, as you know, pertaining also the AU Commissioner's decision to admit Israel as an observer state to the African Union, and where South Africa and Palestine really stand vis-a-vis this issue, which really also requested that we meet in order to coordinate actions and positions in preparation for the next ministerial meeting of the African Union on the 14th and the 15th of this month, where this particular matter should be deliberated, and where we do expect, under the request of so many countries, members of the African Union, that the unilateral decision taken personally by the Commissioner should be rescinded under the request of the majority of the member states of the African Union. So all in all, the meeting was excellent. The atmosphere was beyond what one expected. The discussion was so profound and very professional. And, the issues that we have touched and agreements that we have reached is something that, will put us busy for so many years, ahead.
All right. So, it sounds like you did discuss quite a range of issues, but perhaps if I could just pick up on the one that you spoke about, and that's the African Union Commission's position with Israel. Have you had an opportunity to engage with the African Union Commission directly, or have you been using envoys perhaps such as South Africa?
Well, yes, I did send a letter to the Commissioner And, he responded by saying that it's in his authority to take such decision and his mandate to take this decision, without consulting with the other countries. But, he said that he will put this issue on the agenda for the Executive Council meeting on the 14th. But at the same time, yes, I did raise this issue with many other countries within the continent. The leadership role that South Africa has played in the SADC summit was important because it brought a consensus among the SADC group, objecting to the admission of Israel to the African Union. We have really sent envoys to many other countries in order really to talk to them, but also I have spoken by telephone to others. I took the opportunity while we were in New York attending the 76th session of the General Assembly to meet with other foreign ministers from the continent. So yes, we are very much engaged. And right now, in the last ditch, we have agreed that I will send or write, an open ad letter, to be published and to send to my colleagues in the African Union, hoping and expecting them to take a stand. Obviously, we were taken by surprise, to our dismay, a decision like this was taken by an organization like the African Union. The African Union represents, a collective of countries from the continent who have fought for so many years for their liberation and for their freedom. And they have really paid a very heavy price to get rid of colonizations, settlers, and occupation. It was not easy, to get where they are today, not only in South Africa, but in many other African countries. Now, the African Union reflects, the position and the principal position of all of these countries. And it's not, the sole responsibility or decision of the commissioner to take such a decision against the will or without consultation with the member states of the union. And to invite whom? To invite a country which is being really labeled according to United Nations as an occupying power, still occupying the land of the Palestinian people, still oppressing the Palestinian people, still colonizing, their land, and preventing them from having, their self-determination and their independence. And so, to reward Israel for all of that by admitting her word to the African Union, which really represents and reflects, the most, reflective way of, self-determination, and fight for freedom and for independence. It's the only place where you can see, touch, feel, smell, such spirit, within the African Union. And so for the African Union to reward Israel, which continues until today, confiscating Palestinian people's land, demolishing their homes, uprooting their trees, killing their own people, putting them in prison, and to reward her for what? For what? For all these crimes committed against the Palestinians? Such decision sends a wrong message, not only to the African people, but also to the world. A wrong message that Israel will read it differently. Israel will read it that, there is no accountability. Today, you are aware that the Human Rights Watch, has issued a report characterizing Israel as an apartheid state. And it is really a very important human rights organization recognized internationally. The Israeli human rights organization, B'Tselem, has issued a similar report where it described Israel as an apartheid state. In a few days' time, Amnesty International will issue a report where it will reflect exactly the same position. When all these well-respected, well-recognized international organizations that deal with human rights record internationally, they come openly and describe Israel as an apartheid state, then the African Union comes and instead of calling for expelling Israel from the United Nations, it comes and says, well, we are going to accept Israel as an observer state, within the African Union. Everything is wrong. The whole issue is wrong. The whole decision is wrong. And that's why, the discussion that we have had with Minister Pandor was, what could we do from now until the 14th in this short few days. Of course, in addition to what we have done, in the last couple of months since April, when this issue was surfaced to the public, and to see what kind of accelerated action should be taken by not only South Africa and Palestine, but also other countries who share with us the same notion and calling for rescinding, this particular unilateral and personal decision taken by the Commissioner of the African Union.
Minister, let's talk about the situation back home. Since the escalated situation in May this year, where hundreds of people were killed in those 11 days, what has been the situation between Palestine and Israel since then? Has the ceasefire been holding?
Well, yes, to a certain degree, but you cannot really count on it, that it will continue for long. Look, we are having a new government in Israel. After we were able to, or the Israelis were able to get rid of Netanyahu. The new government, it's a composition of an alliance of 7 to 8, parties representing, left, center, and right, and extreme right. The current Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, represents the extreme right, the most fascist and the settler movement within the Israeli society. And as a person in charge, he, made very strong statements. He said that he's not willing to sit and to meet with my president, the president of the state of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas. And he said no to any resumption of negotiations, political negotiations between Israel and Palestine. And he said that he objects to a Palestinian state and he will prevent the establishment of a Palestinian state. And he said also that he will continue, the construction of the illegal colonial settlements, Israeli colonial settlements in the Palestinian occupied territory. Then, I would like to ask the question, what can we do with such a government led by such a person? Do we have a partner, a negotiating partner on the Israeli side? Absolutely not. With such a person, there is no negotiations. And he said, as long as he is, the prime minister, as long as this current government, coalition government, will stay for the next 4 years, then negotiations with the Palestinians is not on their agenda. And so the situation is very bad. It's very, getting very much worse. And unfortunately, when we approach the international community to intervene, they will say, well, this is a new Israeli government. We should give them leeway. We should give them, space to breathe, to establish themselves. But, the new Israeli government is not, trying to build itself. The Israeli government from the first day started to inflict, damage to the Palestinian people and really to commit crimes against the Palestinian people.
It's quite clear, and we've heard from your president saying that Palestine is ready to resume peace talks. The question I have for you then maybe is, are all Palestinians speaking with one voice? We hear about Hamas versus Fatah, the fallout from the Oslo Accords, the tensions raised by elections. Are you speaking with one voice? Are you united in your cause going forward?
Well, the president has the mandate to speak on behalf of all the Palestinians. That's for sure. The president has the mandate to negotiate on behalf of all the Palestinians. That's for sure. Now, when he reaches an agreement with Israel, then, he has to refer that agreement to a public referendum in order for people to express their positions. But, we cannot, if we have 10 or 20 or 100, political parties or civic organizations, we cannot just, be influenced by each and everyone, because then this won't take us anywhere. As long as the president enjoys that mandate, the president is compelled, has the duty and the responsibility to sit and to negotiate whenever he has the chance, because, his responsibility is to bring freedom and independence to the Palestinian people, to end their suffering and to end the occupation. Of course, there are organizations that think that the armed struggle could achieve that. We have tried it. We did not succeed. And there are others, including the president and myself, who do believe that, political negotiations under the auspices of the United Nations and mandated by UN resolutions and international law should be, the right way to achieve, end of occupation, freedom, and independence. So, yes, we have diversity of opinions. We have voices that we call for different things. But at the end, we do respect all these voices. What's important is, of course, the voice of the president and where he is leading us. We have heard him very well addressing the General Assembly in 10 days' time, and where he was very clear, very strong, and he said the Palestinian people and the Palestinian leadership cannot wait forever for Israel to change its leadership or to change its mind. We cannot wait forever for the Biden administration to decide to make the Palestinian question a priority for her. We, as Palestinian people, we are giving the international community and Israel 12 months, 1 year, to show engagement, commitment, and to start a process that should lead to ending the suffering of the Palestinian people, to ending the occupation, and to achieve freedom and independence. And that's why, that call was received by the international community, by the United States in particular. And we hope that they will digest it very well, will understand what it entails and what it means. Because, we, after 12 months, we will feel, of course, having the full right to think and to decide without any commitments to any adherence to any agreements that we have signed before, in order really to see that our people are well protected and that their rights are well protected. This is really very important. So the messaging was sent very clearly, and there is an echo among the Palestinian people, supporting such call by President Mahmoud Abbas.
All right, and perhaps finally, looking forward, it's a difficult time for your country, and as these settlements continue to grow and the occupation widens, how hopeful are you that the 67 borders and the two-state solution can become a reality? What needs to happen for you to get there?
Very good question. Thank you very much for raising it. I think, my president in his speech somehow alluded to that question, as if he knew that you will ask that question. He said there is right now today a world consensus around the two-state solution. That world consensus did not come easily. It came after so many years of engagement, of fighting, of suffering, of price being paid, etc. And we should not waste that, world consensus around the two-state solution. Because, if we lose it, then, we will need maybe another 50 years before we arrive at another consensus. So this is really one important aspect. Two-state solution is something that we should preserve, protect, and work to achieve. Now, if Israel is not willing to commit itself to the two-state solution, as we have heard previously from Netanyahu, as we have heard recently from the current Prime Minister Bennett, then, of course, the alternative to that is one-state solution. One-state solution, if Israel wants to continue occupying the Palestinian land of the West Bank, including Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip, then, of course, we will be talking about one state from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean. In that state, you will find that there are 6.9 million Israeli Jews residing and 6.9 million Palestinian Arabs residing. So Israel has the option to choose. If it wants to continue the apartheid as it is today, where one group of people, controlling the lives of the other group of people, then they are entrenching further and further, their apartheid system, which is not going to be swallowed or accepted by many other countries in the near future, not only from South Africa, but from more other countries. And then, of course, Israel has to be not only labeled as an apartheid state, but also, to be sanctioned as an apartheid state. This is really one option. The second option is for Israel to admit a democratic process where each citizen living in that historic land of Palestine, from the River Jordan to the Mediterranean, should enjoy equal rights. And so, meaning that, each person has the right to one vote. From a demographic point of view, it might be, in a year or 5 years' time, where the Palestinians will become a majority. Today, we are even, we are equal. But maybe in 5 years' time, we will be, majority. In that case, we have all the right as a majority to govern and to control, in a democratic process, if democracy prevails. So Israel has that choice to go for one-state solution or to go for two-state solution. For them who try to cry all the time about the Jewishness of the State of Israel, then it's up to them to decide if they want to preserve it through the two-state solution or they want to dissolve it in the one-state solution. The president said in his speech, in the United Nations, he said, this is really one option, the two-state solution. If they refuse, then we can go to the one-state solution. And if they will refuse, still we have, the UN partition plan. The UN partition plan of the 1947 gave the Palestinian state, 46% of the historic land of Palestine. Today, after 1967 war, when Israel occupied West Bank, including Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip, this territory, comprises only 22%. So if Israel refuses the two-state solution with the 22%, we are threatening to go back to the partition plan, which gives us 46%. So these are the options, and for Israel to choose. They have 12 months to look into this offer and to decide, what action to undertake.
Dr. Riyad al-Maliki, Palestine's Foreign Affairs Minister and Minister of Expatriates, thank you so much indeed for joining us on the program and sharing your thoughts about the struggles and the challenges that your state is facing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for receiving me. Thank you for having me. And thank you for allowing me to speak, through you to the people of South Africa.